She stood in front of the mirror, adjusting her dress, her lips curling into a smirk. "I'm going on a date tonight," she said casually, like she was telling me she was going to the grocery store. I blinked. Laughed even. "Funny," I said, waiting for her to say she was joking. But she didn't. She turned to me, eyes cold, expression unreadable. "I'm serious, Jason. I'm going out with someone else tonight, and there's nothing you can do about it." A slow, suffocating pressure built in my chest. My wife, was looking me in the eye, telling me she was cheating. Boldly, without guilt, without hesitation. I should have yelled, should have demanded answers. But instead, I just stood there, my fists clenched so tight my nails dug into my palms. She thought she had all the power. She had no idea what was coming. When I met Emma, I thought I had won the lottery. She was the kind of woman who could light up an entire room just by walking into it, effortlessly beautiful, with this contagious energy that made everything feel more exciting. We met at a mutual friend's wedding, and from the second our eyes locked, I knew I was in trouble. She had this playful confidence, the kind that made you want to chase her, to prove you were worthy of her time. And when she chose me, when she laughed at my stupid jokes, leaned into me like she belonged there, and whispered that I was different, I believed her. We fell hard and fast. Late-night conversations that blurred into early mornings, spontaneous road trips, lazy Sundays tangled in each other's arms. Our love felt electric. When I proposed 2 years later, she cried, nodding so fast she could barely breathe. That moment, standing in the middle of a candlelit rooftop, her hands in mine, I thought, this is it. This is my forever. Marriage was supposed to be an adventure, and for a while it was. We built a life together, Sunday brunches at our favorite cafe, movie nights with too much popcorn, inside jokes that only we understood. Every morning, I'd wake up to her curled against my chest, her fingers tracing lazy circles on my skin. It was perfect. Or at least it looked perfect. The first red flag was easy to ignore. She started working late more often, brushing it off as a big project at work. I didn't question it. Emma was ambitious, always pushing herself to climb higher, do better. I admired that about her. But then, the excuses started piling up. She'd go out for drinks with the girls, but come home smelling like cologne. Her phone, once an open book, was now glued to her hand, face down on the table. She started dressing differently. More effort, more makeup, like she was trying to impress someone. I complimented her, told her she looked amazing, but she just smiled, a different kind of smile. One that didn't quite reach her eyes. Still, I convinced myself it was nothing. Because that's what love does, right? It makes you blind. It makes you hold on even when the signs are right in front of you. One night, I woke up to find her missing from our bed. I walked into the living room and found her curled up on the couch, phone pressed to her ear, whispering. She didn't hear me at first, but when she turned and saw me standing there, she jumped like I'd caught her committing a crime. "Who was that?" I asked, my voice calm. Too calm. She laughed, a nervous, forced sound. "Just a friend from work. Couldn't sleep." A lie. I felt it in my bones. But I let it slide. Because I loved her. Because I didn't want to believe that the woman who once looked at me like I was her entire world was now hiding something from me. But deep down I knew. I just didn't know how bad it really was. At first, I told myself I was overthinking, that I was just being paranoid. But paranoia doesn't make your wife flinch when you walk into the room. Paranoia doesn't make her smile at her phone like she's a teenager with a crush, only to lock the screen the second you glance over. Paranoia doesn't make your once affectionate wife pull away when you try to hold her, as if your touch suddenly feels foreign. It started with small things, the kind that didn't seem like much on their own. She became distant, distracted, always lost in thought. When I asked what was wrong, she'd force a smile and say, "Just tired, babe. Work has been exhausting." But work had always been exhausting. And she had never shut me out before. Then came the absences. She started coming home later than usual, claiming there was always some urgent meeting, some last-minute deadline. Some nights, she wouldn't come home at all, saying she crashed at a friend's place because it was too late to drive back. I wanted to believe her. I needed to believe her. But the lies were starting to unravel. One night, she told me she was heading to dinner with her co-workers. I kissed her goodbye, watched her walk out the door in a sleek black dress, one I hadn't seen in years, one she used to wear when we went on dates. Something gnawed at me. So I called her friend, Lisa. "Hey, is Emma with you?" I asked, trying to sound casual. A pause. Then Lisa said, "No? We haven't made plans in weeks." The air felt thick, suffocating. Oh, maybe I misunderstood. Thanks. I hung up before she could ask questions. My pulse hammered in my ears. She lied. And now I needed to know why. I started paying closer attention. She was always glued to her phone, always texting someone. When I asked who, she'd shrug and say, just work stuff. But I wasn't stupid. One night, while she was in the shower, I finally gave in. I picked up her phone, my hands shaking, and pressed the power button. Face ID. Locked. Of course. I sighed, about to put it back when a message flashed on the screen. Can't wait to see you again. Last night was amazing. I felt sick. I stared at the words, my breath catching in my throat. My stomach twisted itself into knots. I wanted to scream, to punch something, to wake up from whatever nightmare this was. Instead, I placed the phone back exactly as it was and walked out of the room. That night, I barely slept. Emma climbed into bed hours later, her body curling against mine, like nothing had changed. Like she wasn't sneaking around behind my back. I lay there, staring at the ceiling, my fists clenched so tight my nails dug into my palms. I needed proof. Real proof. So I started watching. She wasn't careful anymore. Maybe she thought I was too trusting, too oblivious. Maybe she thought she had me wrapped around her finger. She started dressing differently, more effort, more perfume, lace lingerie I hadn't seen in years. But never for me. She started taking extra long to get home. Always had an excuse. One day, I checked our bank statements and saw a charge from a fancy restaurant, the kind we used to go to for anniversaries. But I hadn't been there in months. That was when I knew, without a doubt, that she was cheating. And I was done pretending not to see it. The truth had been staring me in the face for weeks, whispering in the quiet moments when I lay awake at night, screaming in the silences that stretched between us. But I needed to see it. I needed undeniable, gut-wrenching proof. And I got it. That Friday, Emma told me she had another work dinner. Another late night of networking, another excuse wrapped in a half-hearted smile. But I wasn't stupid. Not anymore. I acted normal, kissed her goodbye, and watched as she walked out in that red dress, the one she used to wear when she wanted to drive me crazy. As soon as the door shut, I grabbed my keys and followed her. She had no idea. The drive was short. Too short. She wasn't heading downtown to some business dinner. She was going to a hotel. A hotel. I parked across the street, my heart slamming against my ribs, my hands gripping the wheel so tightly my knuckles turned white. I watched as she stepped out of the car, glanced around like she was making sure no one had followed her, then strutted inside. And then I saw him. Tall. Confident. Smirking like he knew he was stealing another man's wife. Rage boiled in my veins, but I forced myself to stay calm. Not yet. Not yet. I waited 5 minutes. 10. 20. Just enough time for them to get comfortable, to think they were safe. Then I got out of my car and walked inside. The receptionist barely glanced at me as I strode toward the elevator, my pulse pounding so loudly it drowned out everything else. I didn't know what I was going to do when I got up there. Scream? Fight? Fall apart? The elevator doors slid open, and I stepped into the hallway, the plush carpet muffling my footsteps as I walked toward the door I had seen them enter. Room 214. I pressed my ear against the door, and my stomach twisted at the muffled laughter. Her laugh. The same laugh she used to have with me. My vision blurred with fury. I knocked once. Silence. Then footsteps. A moment later, the door cracked open, and Emma's smile froze the second she saw me. Her eyes widened. Jason. I shoved the door open, and there he was, shirtless, standing by the bed, frozen like a deer in headlights. Emma let out a gasp, grabbing the bedsheet and wrapping it around herself like she could somehow hide what I already knew. The air was thick with the scent of her perfume, of sweat, of them. For a moment, no one spoke. Then I laughed. A cold, hollow sound. Wow, you didn't even try to lie this time. Emma swallowed hard. Jason, Save it. My voice was calm. Too calm. How long? She looked away. I clenched my jaw. How long? Her lips parted, but no words came out. And then the guy, her guy, had the audacity to step forward, arms crossed like he actually had something to say. Look, man, he started, voice dripping with arrogance. I think you should. I turned on him so fast he actually flinched. You should what? My voice was razor sharp. Get out before I break your damn face. Emma let out a shaky breath. Jason, please. I turned back to her, my chest rising and falling with deep, uneven breaths. You looked me in the eye. Every day. You kissed me. Slept beside me. And this whole time, you were sneaking around with him. Her eyes filled with tears. But I wasn't falling for it. Not this time. I never meant to hurt you, she whispered. I let out another bitter laugh. Then why do it? She had no answer. Because there was no answer that would fix this. I turned on my heel and walked toward the door. Jason, wait. She scrambled after me, grabbing my wrist. Please, let's talk about this. I yanked my arm free, like her touch burned. We could have talked. Before you threw away our marriage for him. I saw it then, the moment she realized she had lost. The desperation in her eyes, the fear creeping in. She thought she could have both. She thought I would always be there. But she was wrong. Without another word, I walked out. And this time, I wasn't looking back. I barely remember driving home. My hands were shaking on the wheel, my pulse hammering in my ears. Every breath felt like fire in my lungs. Emma, my wife. The woman I had given everything to, my love, my trust, my life. And she had thrown it away for some stranger with a cocky smirk and cheap cologne. By the time I pulled into the driveway, my body was running on pure adrenaline. I couldn't sit still. I paced the living room, my mind replaying every lie she had ever told me. Every excuse, every stolen glance at her phone, every night she worked late. I should have seen it sooner. I did see it. I just didn't want to believe it. Then the front door creaked open. Emma stepped inside, hair messy, makeup smudged, wearing the same damn dress she had worn for him. She froze when she saw me standing there. Jason. Her voice was soft, careful, like she was afraid of setting me off. I let out a bitter laugh, running a hand through my hair. So what now? Are you going to pretend nothing happened? Act like you didn't just walk out of a hotel room with another man. Her eyes filled with tears. Fake. Too late for that now. Jason, please, just let me explain. I scoffed. Explain? What, did you trip and land in bed with him? Did you accidentally lie to me for months? She flinched, her lower lip trembling. It wasn't supposed to happen. I clenched my jaw, but it did. She took a step closer. I took one back. I never wanted to hurt you, she whispered. I exhaled sharply, shaking my head. Then why? Her mouth opened, then closed. Give me one good reason, I continued, voice rising. Tell me why you did it. Why you looked me in the eye every day, kissed me, told me you loved me, when you were sneaking off to screw someone else. Tears spilled down her cheeks. I do love you. I laughed. A cold, humorless sound. No, you don't. You don't do this to someone you love. She inhaled sharply, wiping at her face. Jason, I've been feeling lost. I don't know who I am anymore. We've been together for so long, and I held up a hand. Let me guess. You wanted to feel alive. Wanted something exciting. So you destroyed our marriage for a cheap thrill. It wasn't just a thrill, she snapped, then immediately pressed her lips together, like she hadn't meant to say it. I froze. Her eyes widened like she realized she had said too much. A slow, suffocating weight settled in my chest. How long? My voice was quiet now. Too quiet. She swallowed. Looked down. Emma. My hands curled into fists. How long? Her lips trembled. Then, in a barely audible voice, she whispered, 6 months. Everything inside me went numb. 6 months. 6 months of lies. 6 months of sneaking around, coming home to me, kissing me, sleeping in our bed, while she belonged to someone else. I let out a shaky breath, nodding slowly. Wow. Jason, I was going to take you to Italy. My voice cracked. For our anniversary. I spent months planning the trip, because I thought we were happy. Tears streamed down her face now. We were happy. My head snapped up. No, I was happy. You were busy screwing someone else. She choked on a sob. I messed up, okay? I don't know what's wrong with me. I got caught up in something and I didn't know how to stop. I scoffed. You didn't know how to stop. You just didn't want to. Silence. Her shoulders shook as she cried. I don't want to lose you. I stared at her. This woman, the one I had loved with every fiber of my being, was a stranger to me now. I had spent years believing we were unbreakable. That no matter what, we would always choose each other. But she hadn't chosen me. She had chosen him. I stepped back, exhaling deeply. You lost me the second you walked into that hotel room. Her breath hitched. Jason, please. I turned, heading for the door. Where are you going? I grabbed my keys, looking over my shoulder one last time. Anywhere but here. And then I walked out. And I didn't look back. I drove for hours that night. Nowhere in particular, just away. Away from a house that no longer felt like home. Away from the woman who had shattered everything I thought we had. My mind raced with 1,000 thoughts, 1,000 ways I could make her pay. I could expose her. Let everyone know what kind of woman she really was. I could send those messages I found to her family, her friends, let them see the real Emma. Or I could go after him. Show up at his job, humiliate him in front of his colleagues, let his wife, if he had one, know exactly who he was. But as I sat there, gripping the steering wheel so tightly my knuckles turned white, something inside me shifted. Revenge wouldn't fix this. It wouldn't take away the betrayal. It wouldn't erase the nights I had spent believing in a lie. And worst of all, it wouldn't change her. She had already lost the best thing she ever had. Me. I checked into a hotel that night, ironic, really, considering what had just happened. But I needed space. Time to think. The next morning, I went back to the house. She was waiting. Her face was pale, eyes red and swollen like she hadn't slept. She must have thought I had left for good. When I stepped inside, she shot up from the couch. Jason. I held up a hand. Save it. Her lip trembled. I thought you weren't coming back. I met her gaze, my voice steady. I came back for my things. Not for you. Her breath hitched, but I didn't care. She had made her bed. Now she could lie in it alone. I walked past her, heading straight to the bedroom. She followed. Jason, please, we can talk about this. I laughed under my breath. There's nothing left to talk about, Emma. You chose this. I don't know why I did it, she whispered. I turned, staring at her like I was seeing her for the first time. You do know. You just don't want to admit it. And honestly, I don't care anymore. She let out a soft sob, but I didn't flinch. I packed quickly. Clothes, essentials, the things that mattered. The rest? She could keep it. Let it be a reminder of everything she destroyed. As I zipped up my suitcase, she stepped closer. Do you really want to throw away everything we had? I exhaled sharply, turning to face her. You already did. Her breath shuddered. I never meant to hurt you. I shook my head. But you did. And the worst part, you didn't even care until you got caught. She opened her mouth, but nothing came out. Good. There was nothing left to say. I grabbed my bag, walked past her, and headed for the door. She followed. Jason, please. Don't do this. I turned one last time, meeting her tear-filled eyes. If you had just been honest, if you had told me you were unhappy instead of sneaking around like a coward, maybe things would be different. She swallowed hard. But you didn't. And now, you have to live with that. And with that, I walked out. I didn't look back. She didn't chase me. And for the first time in months, I felt free.